Yes, as the title suggests, I've kind of been avoiding watching this, but this is the video that has blown up the MAGA sphere. You have some of the OGs like Ben Shapiro that are vehemently, vehemently coming out against um, platforming Nick Fuentes, so coming out against Tucker Carlson, and it has created a great rift in the right wing. And the Heritage Foundation is undergoing a revolt. Um, there's the head of the Heritage Foundation, and I can't recall his name right now, but he is the one that has kind of coined the term for a while ago called netter, which is no enemies to the right. And that means somebody like Nick Fuentes should be not attacked, should be platformed. Again, no enemies to the right. That's, I mean, in the political spectrum, I used to be considered fairly right wing. That is clearly not the case anymore. And yet, my views haven't really changed that much. It's just the party has gone pants on their head crazy. Now, I have not seen this interview yet, and it is a long one. It's about 2 hours. So I'm going to break this up into segments as much as I can stand, frankly. But without further ado, here's Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes. And just one more note about Ben Shapiro. Dude, you created this mess. You and the others started us down this little funnel, and the bottom of the funnel is Nick Fuentes. So enjoy the ride. You started it.
Yeah, so when I was in high school, I was very political. I was reading a lot of the libertarian stuff, Austrian school, Chicago school, economic type literature, because that's what was popular at the time. If you went online in the early 2010s, that's all the conservative content there really was. That was the most extremely online type
libertarian
stuff.
economics.
Well, yeah, basically kind of the remnant of the Ron Paul revolution.
Yes.
The Young Americans for Liberty, PragerU, which kind of skews a little more, I guess, conservative, but very basic small government, individualism, libertarian type stuff.
So you watch PragerU videos?
Oh, yeah. I was in the Prager Force.
What's that?
It's a Facebook group for college kids, and they promote the PragerU videos.
Wow.
To the college students and high school students.
So you really were a product of the moment.
Absolutely.
And how'd you feel about Trump?
Well, initially, I didn't like Trump. When the primary started in 2015, I considered him to be a statist.
Yeah.
Which sounds so ridiculous now.
No, a lot of people thought that.
Yeah. And I was a libertarian, so I saw him as a big government, 1990s liberal. When he was asked about healthcare, he said, well, we'll take care of everybody. And I said, I'm a Rand Paul guy, Ted Cruz guy. Those were kind of my people back in 2015.
You like Ted Cruz?
I was a cruise missile.
Just cruise.
Is there anything more cringy than that? I mean, seriously. And also, Trump as a statist, he still is. I mean, he just made a joke to a foreign pharmaceutical company that maybe the company should do like others and allow us, he said us, to own part of the company. That's communism. That is textbook communism. What the Trump administration is doing by taking ownership stakes in private business is communism. Just get that out there.
Know that?
I don't think so, no. I was actually on his campaign.
You were on the Ted Cruz campaign?
I don't know if I was on the campaign, but I door knocked in a little village in Chicago, in McKinley Park, for Ted Cruz.
No way.
In the Illinois primary.
Did he write you a thank you note?
No, I didn't get a thank you. He lost, so I guess.
Yeah, he did. He did in a very humiliating way. Wow, that's amazing. So, So what happened?
So I, like everybody else in 2016, went through this ideological awakening. And first I shifted to Trump. And the first realization that I had is it started in 2016, actually, because the primaries, started in 15, around April or May, I think was the first announcements. And I had very negative feelings about Trump. And like I said, pro Rand Paul, pro Cruz. But when the actual Iowa caucus happened and the primaries began, I saw that Trump was dominating. And every night in the Super Tuesday, when they had all the big contests, one after the other, I remember the media was furious that he was winning one after the other. And I remember thinking to myself, like, structurally, if I'm a libertarian or a conservative and we want to change the country, we have to win elections. If you want to win elections, you have to bypass the media. I sort of have this.
Okay, so this is confession time. I really didn't like any candidate for 2015, 2016. I suppose at the time, as a Republican, I was more along the lines of definitely not Ted Cruz, for sure not Ted Cruz. Leaning more along the Marco Rubio line. I did not vote for Trump. I will say that. I was kind of shocked, and I don't want to say pleased that he won, but I was shocked that he won. And that was kind of a weird election night. Just a little mea culpa. I mean, I know what my channel is about, but I've never hidden the fact that I am a center. I mean, I'm center left now, I guess, because that's the political spectrum has shifted so far. Overton window, if you want to be technical about it. But I do find it weird when he talks like, I went through this ideological awakening. It's not a religious experience, my dude. It's not. You and that is one thing I do. People should have some fundamental core beliefs. And the idea of a ideological awakening or something like that, where you suddenly shift your politics totally around, just doesn't seem to ring true to me. I think you can realize some things about yourself, or maybe about a party that you support. Maybe you work on a campaign or something and you realize they're not the shining beacon of morality and hope and change, or small government that you thought they were. And so that can lead you to not support a party. But I do think that people's fundamental natures don't change all that much. I think they expand. If anything, I think as you get older, the tests that you go through in life make it harder for you to hold on to your convictions. So for a guy like this to be like an ideological awakening and talking about a cruise missile and everything, it's just really cringe to me. It's just really facile. It's equating politics and policy and the governing of this country to a jokey catchphrase.
Realization that the media was really standing in the way.
Course.
They were the problem. And I had this realization that all the conservatives and Republicans up to that point were afraid to take on the media. They, like Mitt Romney, would cower before them and were so apologetic and so weak. And so initially I said, I actually don't ideologically agree with Trump at all, but he will destroy the liberal media, or at least their monopoly on thought and opinion.
Yes.
And then a breakthrough can occur. So that was kind of the first hump. And I said, I could get behind Trump because he's a winner. He'll win for our side. And that was kind of the first big thing. And then as I listened to him more and more, his speeches and his rhetoric, I started to think about immigration.
Which you hadn't really considered before?
Never. And the reason why is because I was from a 95% white suburb. So the diversity had not really reached my corner of Chicago yet. Me and my family, not so much my family, they grew up in the city, but growing up in the suburbs, I was insulated from that. So it was just not even, it's actually, you're going to love this. I don't know if I've ever even said this on an interview before. I was listening to Mark Levin's show. This goes to show how normie I was.
Actually?
I listen to him every day.
You listen to Mark Levin every day?
In high school, yes.
Wow.
I was a fan. I loved his show. And I actually liked how he was kind of obnoxious and mean to his callers.
Yeah.
Vicious. And I liked that. I thought that was funny. But I'll never forget one show. He goes live and he says, America's becoming a majority non-white country. Does anybody think that's a good idea? And I was thinking to myself, yeah, that actually doesn't sound.
So again, I traveled a lot in my 20s, and I didn't listen to Rush Limbaugh, but Mark Gallagher, a few of those. I don't even know really what to say about this. The majority non-white country. I don't necessarily want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. And so and this is kind of why I struggle to even do this thing. But I do think Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson and a lot of the politics that we are going through today is a consequence of that demographic shift. Specifically, I think there is a lot of fear of what that will look like and what that will mean. And the result is our current politics and things like this. Now, I know there are some well-meaning people out there that are just, it's cartel violence and it's this. But we've had, for the most part, unfettered immigration into this country for well over 30, 40 years. Reagan gave amnesty. George W. Bush, I've mentioned this online and also in videos, I believe. But I think George Bush, the younger, had probably the best comprehensive immigration policy that any president has put forward. And it ticked all the boxes of what we need as this country. We need immigrant labor. We need immigrants for this country. We need, but we also can't let them be exploited. And if they commit crimes, we certainly need to walk them out, so to speak. And it was actually at the time, the Republican Party was kind of like today. They had all three branches of government, and it was Republicans that killed the immigration bill, specifically because they wanted to keep it as a wedge issue for future elections. So when you ask why is the border open, why is immigration a problem? He's young, and obviously he talks about liberal media. I don't really think there is all that liberal media anymore. Certainly there wasn't ever since Obama got elected. And the idea that Fox News is some type of news channel or something like that is just laughable. It is absolutely laughable. Fox News is a propaganda network. And full stop. It's a propaganda network. They make no bones about it. When they get taken to court, they acknowledge that they're essentially an entertainment network, and only their hard news that they show during the day is news. Everything else is an opinion. Everything else is entertainment. So that's kind of where I don't know where he's going with this. I'm not too excited to find out.
So good. I didn't really even think that America's becoming majority minority like that.
Wait, so you were radicalized on race by Mark Levin?
Yes.
Are you making that up? Or that's
a real story.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm. He planted the seed at least. And then I saw a graphic on 4chan or Twitter and I'm sure you've seen something similar. It said, this is what the map looks like, the electoral map. If only men vote, if only women vote, if only whites vote, if only non-whites vote. And it became very obvious what the electoral problem is. It's demographics. These immigrants are coming here. They're going to turn Texas blue like they turned California blue.
Yeah, I saw it happen.
Yeah. And, you look at even the opinion polls. These people don't believe in free speech. They don't believe in the Constitution, the Second Amendment. As a libertarian, the things that are, and as American, things that are important to you, they don't believe, they don't understand these things. And so I said, that's another political obstacle. You've got the media, you've got immigration. So I'm thinking like, well, we're going to vote for Ted Cruz. He's going to be the constitutionalist. We'll vote for Rand Paul. He'll be the libertarian. But what stands in the way of political power for us? It's the media and it's immigration. So I said, well, we got to get Trump to beat the media, build the wall, deport the illegals. And once we set the country straight, then we can actually have our constitutional republic back. That was kind of the idea. And that's the...
There's so many things wrong with this. I almost don't even know where to begin. First of all, he talks about immigrants not knowing the Constitution. He doesn't know the Constitution. When he's talking about media and he's talking about trampling on the First Amendment. When he talks about a president that he's trampling on the separation of powers, he does not believe in the Constitution. Nick Fuentes is an anti-constitutionalist. Period. He talks about being a libertarian, but no. He talks about these are fundamental things to the American character that he rejects.
Mindset that I had going into college.
Amazing. So then what happened?
So I go to college and I'm just at that point a huge Trump supporter. And you got to understand, for me, for my generation, so I was 18. I turned 18 in August 2016. And to us,
That's
Trump...
amazing.
Yeah. Well, because we're like the first generation that was influenced by Trump coming of age in that moment.
No, I say it's amazing because when you're living in something, you don't appreciate its full significance. But to be 18 in August of 2016, so this really is, as you're forming your views and really yourself.
Yes.
In the middle of this.
So as I mute this and let this, whatever this is, play, there's something to that. I guess when I was coming of age, turning 18, the ridiculousness of our politics made me look at everything like this with a very gimlet eye, because when I was turning 18, it was Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky, and the Republicans going after him for the Oval Office incident. And that, I guess, does shape someone's politics to a certain extent, because I view these as calculated attacks. Like, they don't believe what they're actually attacking about. It's all about power. It's all about what power you can gain and what you can do to gain it. And really, nobody should believe any party to uphold core convictions.
And win. Like, he was unstoppable, unflappable. Nobody could score points on him. He just seemed like, they said you can't stump the Trump. Like, he could not be stumped. And so he just had this aura of inevitability, invincibility. And I loved that. And so I went to Boston University. I got on campus in September, and I was wearing my MAGA hat everywhere, in the dining hall, walking down the street. And it's a city campus. So you're walking down Commonwealth Avenue and, you're in the city of Boston, which is super liberal. And at that time, it's different than it was now. People were getting fired for wearing MAGA hats. People were getting punched in the face. It was like being a Trump supporter was out there actually back then. It was controversial. It was controversial everywhere, not even, just in liberal Boston. But so I was wearing my hat everywhere, and I was just getting accosted constantly. in the dining hall, people would come up and yell in my face. Some black girl in a hijab ran up to me and said, "You know what you're supporting? You're racist." This, and I'm trying to get my pizza, I'm trying to get my oatmeal or whatever at the dining hall. This was happening constantly. And so I was going then on Twitter, and I had a small Twitter account with my real name and face, and I had, maybe 200 followers, and I'm posting about my experiences. And I caught the attention of a lot of people on campus for wearing the hat, for posting on Twitter, and they found my Twitter.
You've only been there like a month?
Less, weeks, maybe 3 weeks. This is starting to kick up. And I catch the attention of my peers, and they start going at me on Twitter and giving me death threats. "We're going to kill you. How dare you? If I see you, I'm going to beat your ass," that kind of thing. And this was my first experience with this. Now we're all kind of desensitized to it, but that was my first run-in with this intensity from the left. So I file a police report. I get real nervous. And, when you're a student, you can't really avoid other people. You're in a dorm room. Exactly. You're in the, so you're vulnerable. And anyway, long story short, so one of these guys from the campus libertarian group, Young Americans for Liberty, he reaches out to me and says, "Hey, I'm not going to say his name, but he goes, I go to a school in Boston. I'm from YAL." He said, "And I'd like to set up a debate with you and one of these people that's been giving you a hard time on campus," because they were doing a lot of events. He said, "Is that something you're interested in?" I said, "Absolutely." And so he goes around and he asks some of the bigger people that are antagonizing me on Twitter, and everybody says no. And he goes, "Yeah, no one's going for it." I said, "Well, can you try again? Can you?" And so he finds one guy, and it turns out to be the student body president of the whole university.
It'll be you.
Yeah, the senior, this liberal douchebag progressive. And he's the student body president of the student government there. And so we set up the debate. It was about a week before the actual election. So I think it was end of October, beginning of November. And they hold it in this auditorium in the center of the campus, and like 300 people show up. So it turns into like this huge, and they're all liberal. They all hate my guts. They're heckling me the whole time. They're yelling at me. We do this debate about Trump versus Hillary. And so I'm there, and I'm pro-Trump, and I say, I think Trump's going to win. And I'm straight up like ripping the Ben Shapiro talking points. I'm saying, it's got everything to do with culture and nothing to do with race, and diversity's a problem and all this. And I decisively win the debate. It's like not even close. The debate wraps up, and this girl who I think I had talked to her on Twitter once or twice comes running up to the stage after the debate, and it's Cassie Dillon. And at this time, she's a fellow at Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro's company. And like I said, I barely knew her. And she comes running up and she says, "Oh my gosh, I live streamed this debate on Periscope on Twitter." She said, "And 30,000 people watched it, and you have like 5 job offers. You did incredible." I said, "Wow, I don't know what to say. That's great." She goes,
"You're 18 years old."
Yes. So it's like.
So this goes back to what I think I probably mentioned this in my previous video where I talk about Tucker Carlson. These people, pause at a great time. He looks like a whack job. Yeah, these people. So here you go. He wears a MAGA hat on campus. He's all cool. And we all did stupid things in college, I'm sure. But you have these people who are just professional political people. They're professional commentators. And now I'm seeing why he does the things he does. He's never worked a real job. Again, kind of like Tucker Carlson. He's never worked a real job. He has nothing. He does not know the plight of everyday people. He doesn't know. I mean, he's just his intellectual underpinnings for his beliefs are scant to probably non-existent. He is just a commentator. I'd almost say it's all clickbait, but he's a walking, talking piece of clickbait. Tucker Carlson, similar thing. When he could be the dweeby conservative and be on, CNN and all those things. Now can be controversial in order to get views. And This is just a job for these people. It's not a ideological core moral belief. It's Twitter troll come to life. Anyway, I'm gonna try and keep these videos fairly short. We'll do several of them, but these are kind of hard to go through.
Happening very quickly for me, you know? And she goes, do you want to do a post-game interview after the debate? I said, sure. And so she asked me about how I thought the debate went and what my views are and things like that. And, you know, very normal stuff. And then at the end, she says, I just got back from doing study abroad in Israel. She goes, and it was amazing. Would you ever take a trip to Israel? And I said, no, I think I got everything I need right here in America. And she goes, oh, okay. And she wraps up the interview. And that was a little bit of foreshadowing. And this begins a relationship, not a romantic relationship, but we become friends and we start talking. And she's plugged in, like I said, a Daily Wire. She's talking to people at Right Side Broadcasting Network, the college Republicans. I start to develop this friendship with her. And over time, she lands me this show on Right Side Broadcasting Network. And in this time, I'm really starting to lean into America first. I'm becoming more pro-Trump as time goes on. And what really stood out to me was Trump's inaugural address in January 17th. So this was just a couple months later. And in Trump's inaugural, he says famously, a new vision will govern our land. It's going to be only America first, America first. And I said, that's me. Like, that's what I believe. Yeah. I'm an American nationalist.
Me too.
Fully at this point, not even a conservative. And there was one thing that happened just before that that really struck me as strange. And I've told this story before. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but suffice to say, Barack Obama in the lame duck period, so the Democrats lost the election. He's on his way out. There's a resolution in the Security Council condemning the settlements in the West Bank in Israel. And typically, the U.S. delegation will veto those resolutions condemning Israel. Well, Obama's on his way out. He's got nothing to lose. So the U.S. delegation abstains from the resolution, and it passes. And Fox News and all the pro-Israel conservatives are calling him an anti-Semite. They're saying he hates Jews. He's an anti-Semite. He hates Israel. And I saw that, and it struck me as strange because it seemed hypocritical. It seemed like how when conservatives would critique anything about race, we got called racist, or anything about feminism, we got called sexist. All Obama did was uphold U.S. policy on the West Bank that we've had since 1967, which is we don't support the settlements. I said, how is it anti-Semitic to just be consistent on our U.S. foreign policy? Like I said, which is a Republican-Democrat consensus. And I got attacked for this. I wrote a big article about this. I tweeted about it. I tweeted to Ben Shapiro. I said, I've never seen anything on the Daily Wire that's actually critical of Israel. And he quote tweets me. And at this time, I have 1,000 followers on Twitter.
How old are you?
I'm 18. I'm a freshman.
Still a freshman in college, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And this is even before I started my show. And I don't know, I probably got 100 likes on this tweet. It wasn't a viral tweet. He quote tweets me and says, to accuse a Jew of dual loyalty is the surest sign of anti-Semitism. And like, this is how it sort of begins. And I see this tweet. And by the way,
okay, so I'm not going to touch the Israel thing with a 10-foot pole. Suffice to say, I think there's a lot of underpinnings into our support of Israel. Some I agree with, some I do not. I do feel like perhaps we should treat Israel as any other nation. They're an ally. They do seem to be an ally that requires a lot of our assistance. And oftentimes that assistance we provide to Israel puts us in a very bad geopolitical position, such that we don't really allow ourselves to be put in that type of adverse geopolitical position for any other country except for maybe the UK.
That was on Christmas Eve in 2016.
He immediately called you an anti-Semite.
Mm-hmm. So I'm driving to Christmas Eve Mass with my family, and I see on Twitter the notification comes up. Ben Shapiro quote tweets me, calling me an anti-Semite. And I was like, what is this? Like, why is this guy attacking me? You know, because I don't have a platform at this time. I'm not an influential guy or anything. And so then I put out another tweet similar. I said something like, if you're China first, you should live in China. If you're Mexico first, you should live in Mexico. If you're Israel first, maybe you should go live in Israel. And again, he quote tweets me and says, you're an anti-Semite.
That same night?
This was, I think, a couple weeks later. Happened a little bit further down the line. And so...
Were you surprised that he knew you were?
Yeah, I was. I was surprised at why he cared.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, how does he even know who I am or what I'm about? And it turned out that Cassie Dillon, she had texted him earlier and she wanted him to take me under his wing. She texted him after that debate and said, you know, you really like this guy. He's amazing. He did this great debate. She goes, but he's a little too pro-Trump. He's a little too Trumpy. And he goes, I'll take a look. And so I guess the two of them were kind of like grooming me in a sense. They wanted me to go maybe and be a Daily Wire, or maybe looking me as a potential conservative activist or influencer. And so they started paying attention to me, and the more critical of Israel I was, I started to get this really intense pushback from the both of them and from a lot of the people at Daily Wire.
Why do you think, so you're an 18-year-old college freshman, you're clearly talented and you're engaged, you're really interested, and you ask, no.
This is starting to sound like a soap opera. Again, these are not the concerns of normal people. They just aren't. Ooh, Ben Shapiro quote tweeted me. They were grooming me to go work at the Daily Wire. Yeah, this is not sounding like someone who's concerned about the plight of the American people. I'm going to end it here, though, mainly because this is, frankly, quite boring and painful. If I wanted to hear about the life and travails of an 18-year-old Trump supporter in 2016, I don't really want to. I mean, I hope this interview kind of picks up a little bit, because right now it's boring as fuck. All right. Have a good night, YouTube. Thanks.